Hi, I'm Slice.
And I'm Emily.
And welcome to another episode of Home Records, the podcast where we, two married musicians, pick an album from our 2000-piece vinyl collection and discuss its personal and cultural importance. How are you doing today?
I am good. Well, actually, we've been having the Sunday Scaries today. We always record this podcast on Sundays.
Mostly in the mornings, but it's the afternoon now.
Yeah, and so was feeling a little Sunday scary today.
We have very busy lives being musicians, having day jobs, and also just needing time with each other and for ourselves.
Yeah, which honestly we did a good job of this week.
We did a really good job.
I'm very proud of us.
Me too.
We had a lot of fun date nights this week.
Yes, we did.
We went to a cave on Friday. On Friday. If you've ever been to the caverns, where is that?
In Pelham, Tennessee. So,
Pelham.
Yep. So
it's like an hour 45.
It's on the way to Chattanooga.
Oh my gosh. If you've never been to the caverns, the Ryman, as everybody knows, is my absolute favorite venue in town. But the caverns, very, very close. Like, might be, it's in the top 10 of coolest venues for me, I think.
It's a very unique venue. You've never been anywhere like it. It's literally a cave.
Yeah, I'm like, we could describe it, but picture a giant cave, and then that's what it is. That's kind of it.
Yep.
So we did that. And then yesterday was 4th of July.
Which we pretty much just relaxed and watched the World Cup during that time.
Yeah, we've been big on the World Cup recently.
Yeah, I had a gig, and you went to spend time with a friend watching the fireworks.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I did not venture downtown. They said that there was 100,000 people on Broadway for 4th of July. I stayed away from that, but I did go to an apartment that saw the fireworks from downtown, so it was a good way to do it.
So apparently there's been some reports that there have been maybe closer to 400 or 500,000.
Oh my gosh.
Possibly.
Okay, now picture this. Super Bowl. Nashville has been said to be the next Super Bowl place in 2030 or something. Can you picture that? If that's what 4th of July is like, can you picture the Super Bowl?
Thanks, I hate it.
Now, I'm telling you now, I will do the Super Bowl.
I just gave her a consolation tap.
Yeah, I will be doing that by myself is what I think that tap meant.
I don't know. We'll see what happens. Depends who's doing the halftime show.
Ooh. Well, I don't know. We'll have to do a lot of gigs before then to see if we can afford a ticket to the Super Bowl.
This is true. Well,
I don't know if we'll make that.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah. But
I feel like how many times do you get that opportunity? I did 4th of July downtown one time, the very first year I moved here, and kind of said I would never do that again.
That's pretty much everybody I know that lives here. They're like, we did it once. It was a great time. Let's never do that again. Now,
I will say, when we got away from the big crowds and we actually went and sat in front of the Nashville Symphony and then the fireworks. So the symphony plays and the fireworks shoot above the symphony. That I would do again. That was really cool. That was really cool.
Yeah, that sounds good.
You do have to still fight all the crowd and everything, but it was surprisingly less people over there than in front of the giant concerts, of course.
Right.
So Anyway,
we are recording this episode the day after 4th of July. We actually initially intended to record this on the 4th of July, but like I said, we just decided to take it easy that day before the evening festivities. But we figured we do it the next day anyway, since we had some time. And we are talking about a record that actually I picked this record because thematically it very much ties into the current state of our political affairs as a country at the 250th anniversary of the United States independence. And of course, the record we're talking about is Sail Away by Randy Newman.
Yes. So you did that on purpose?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. That was a well-timed choice. As we were listening to it, I was like, man, this record, okay, it's going there.
Yep.
I had never listened to this record. I feel like that should just be a given until I say otherwise. For the most part. But yeah, so I love this dynamic where for me, most of the time, I would say 80% of the time I'm listening for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is a record that you've probably lived with for a little bit longer. And so I've always loved that dynamic of this podcast. But this was such an interesting listen, literally the day after 4th of July. Has a lot of political undertones to it.
Yeah. So, and before we dive into it, of course, you hear the name Randy Newman, and probably most people associate Randy Newman with the Pixar films, Toy Story, Bugs Life, Cars, just a lot of the early Pixar, definitely Monsters Inc., what have you,
Which is also super timely. I mean, Toy Story 5 just came out, 2 weeks ago?
Well, the funny thing is that he did still contribute the score to that film, but he didn't write any of the songs for it, as far as I'm aware of. Taylor Swift took the helm for
I thought she did just
one.
the one song.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that they kind of, the format is just a little bit different. Usually, even in the Toy Story 4, I think there was really only one or two songs, too, that Randy Newman wrote. I think one of them, Chris Stapleton, actually sang for the end credits song. We haven't seen the movie. We're gonna see the movie, I think, at some point. But like the end credit or whatever the big song is, like the "You've Got a Friend in Me" of Toy Story 5, that's Taylor Swift's joint there. But yeah, I mean, up to now, Randy Newman has scored all those films. He's scored many films beyond Pixar as well. And before all that, he was pretty much a budding singer-songwriter in the late 60s and early 70s. Came from a musical family. His father as well. Very much had that background just going into it. But not
and he was like a songwriter first, right? Like he was a songwriter and then did the artist thing a little later in life.
He was kind of trying to do both at the same time almost. Because he had songs that he was pitching for, just trying to get a record deal or just trying to record. They were both actually kind of happening at the same time. He was making records as his songs were being recorded by other artists.
And I always say that, and then I'm like, whoever's listening may not actually know what I mean by that. There are people, especially in Randy Newman's time, this is getting, I would argue it's getting less and less in today's world, but especially in Randy Newman's time, being a songwriter was a full-time job. And so, people were pitching songs to artists and then they would cut it and that kind of thing. And so it was really two separate jobs. So that's what I mean by that when I ask that question.
Yeah. The other songwriter that was kind of a contemporary of Randy's that was doing almost the exact same thing was Harry Nilsson, because Harry Nilsson was also...
Oh, right, yeah.
He also had songs that, were getting pitched to artists at the same time as he was trying to, eventually become an artist of his own. And him and Randy kind of came up about the same time. The thing with Randy, though, is that Randy had a lot of misses, if you will. He actually had a lot of songs that were cut by artists, but just as very deep cut album tracks or singles that pretty much no one remembers or forgot.
I mean, for as big as Randy Newman is, I would say he is like a deep cut artist to me. Like all his songs to me sound like deep cuts, and then the fact that like some of them are like the soundtrack of our childhood is just like, wait, what? Like, does that make, like, the format of it is what I mean by that. Like, it doesn't sound like a catchy in your face kind of hit. It just sounds like a deep cut. Like, wow, that's really sentimental and folky.
Well, I mean, considering also his voice is also what I would call, for lack of a better term, non-commercial, especially in that time period. I mean, and his brand of songwriting was very... It had a lot of influences of probably a lot of older American music, but was also ahead of its time simultaneously.
Okay, I have to ask this, and you might laugh me off this podcast. Did he listen to Tom Waits at all?
No, he was before Tom Waits.
Okay, then Tom Waits must have listened to him. Like, there's something in the tone of the voice. Like, obviously, like, very different styles, very different voices, very different everything. But, like, there's something in the way they sing that is similar. I don't know if that makes sense, like, in the vowel shape.
Well, Randy never really sounded like anyone else, and he never really tried to. And Tom eventually never really did, but I will say this: for a good amount of Randy's childhood, he did grow up in New Orleans.
Oh, that might do it.
Which Tom Waits actually didn't. Tom Waits is from San Diego, but they all share a lot of pretty similar DNA in terms of musical language and feel and style. Of course, Randy Newman is a more trained pianist, so he can play a lot. It's actually kind of hard to play some Randy Newman songs on piano. Playing them on piano and singing them at the same time are actually really hard, including the Pixar film songs.
And if you do not know, I am sitting next to who I consider to be one of the best pianists I've ever worked with. So for him to say that is actually a pretty big deal. And
don't believe a word she says.
That is completely true. Completely true. I barely play piano in our house because I don't want him to hear me.
You play piano great.
I do, but not comparison.
Here's the thing, though, is that for me, being a keyboardist pianist, it's not really the only thing I do, and the reason I make a point of saying that is that I feel like I don't have the mindset of a keyboardist. I don't have the personality of, I think, most typical keyboardists. At least some keyboardists I know that's really almost exclusively what they focus on and do. For me, playing keyboard was more just as a tool to play songs or to write songs. It's like I'm not trying to play or learn piano to show off any technical ability. It's more of like I want to be able to play like this Randy Newman song, and I've learned to play two or three of the songs on this record. Like I said, some of them are hard, and I do have the piano scores that he actually transcribed himself.
You play a lot of Randy Newman in our house, actually.
I have a couple of his sheet music books, which again, Randy transcribed those scores himself. So I know I'm getting, for the most part, the most accurate interpretation of playing that song, just singing and playing at the same time.
Can we talk for a second about like the world of sync? Because Randy Newman is just it's so funny to me that he's just like the soundtrack for all of these movies.
But that wasn't for sync. He was commissioned to write for these specific films.
Yeah, which is a different thing. But I just think it's so interesting that like it's just such a big part of his world and his catalog and his career.
Well, in the early 80s, he actually was hired to write film scores for various films, like The Natural, which was like one of the first films he was nominated for an Oscar for Best Original Score. So he did that. And actually, there's one song in this record that actually wasn't a film, but we'll get to that song in a second. But
was that because his dad was in the film world?
Yes and no. No, because this was years after this came out. Because Sail Away came out in 1972, and it was actually his third record. But up to that point, critics really loved Randy Newman's records. They loved his albums. Record buyers, not so much. Unless you were like unless you were like really into, like you said, kind of deeper cut artists, things like that.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, though. He was signed to Warner Brothers. He grew up with Lenny Waronker, who was also credited as a co-producer on this record. Lenny Waronker runs Warner Brothers.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But they grew up together. And, in the business, Randy was Lenny's number one guy for all time. And Randy will always acknowledge Lenny for everything he did. I mean, Lenny was also the guy that discovered Van Halen. I'm just saying that's how much levity Lenny has had on the music business, being the head of Warner Brothers, or eventually being the head of Warner Brothers. So when you're best friends with a guy who ends up being the head of Warner Brothers, it's like, well, at least to say you're at least going to get a few shots.
Yeah, that's a convenient friendship. Wow.
But like
But how nice.
They literally,
how lovely.
Yeah, they literally grew up together. They were kids when they were, coming up, and Lenny always saw Randy as very much a unique genius as a songwriter, as an artist, and really fought tooth and nail as much as one could to really, get him a shot at the big time, quote unquote.
Hey, pays to have good friends.
It does. Even if you're
I
Randy.
did not know that. That's so interesting.
Yeah. It does pay to have good friends, even if one of them is Randy Newman. But which he would say himself. So
yeah. So you want to dive into this record? Because this record says a lot.
It does say a lot, and that's kind of the reason why I suggested it on the cusp of the 250 anniversary of the United States of America, because this was really the first record where Randy really, I guess one could say, took his shots at commentary on the American condition, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it. I mean, there's no way of beating around that. That's exactly what this is. It's political commentary. Some things are political satire. Yeah. I mean, it just is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a full record of that too.
Yeah, precisely. And he did all the orchestral arrangements, I believe, for the whole record. Again, it was co-produced by Lenny Waronker. It was also co-produced by Russ Tileman, who later on went to produce Steve Winwood's records in the 80s and won Grammys for that. So, a whole cast of talent. But the whole record is pretty much, for the most part, just Randy and the piano with some orchestrations, a few full band, very low-key things. It's very much a quintessential singer-songwriter record.
It's a beautiful sounding record.
Mm-hmm.
Easy listening, very, very beautiful. And it's interesting because it sounds, to be honest, it sounds like very easy, happy, low-key, let's hang out on a lazy Sunday afternoon kind of song.
Well, that's if you want to hear Randy Newman sing, which I know is not for everybody, because he's a very distinctive voice. You can't miss him if you hear him sing.
It. I actually was a big fan of the way this sounded. This is one, like I said, I had never listened to this record. I hadn't ever listened. I realized as we were doing this, I hadn't listened to a Randy Newman record. He's just an artist who has been like someone who's been the soundtrack for many events in my childhood, or like you play him around the house literally a lot. And so, I feel like he's been in my world, but I've never sat down and listened to a full record of him. I really like his sound. I actually was pretty inspired by the way it sounded, to be honest, just because it is such a singer-songwriter feel, and there's kinship in that, and just an honest way of singing, and just like I'm just trying to state whatever I'm here to say, and that is the stuff I absolutely love. So I actually really loved it, but it's so interesting that it sounds like easy listening, and then you tune into the lyrics, and you're like, whoa, there's some heavy hitting stuff in the lyric, but it doesn't match the way it sounds.
Oh well, and that's because of Randy's very distinctive sense of humor. That's his very he's a
very funny writer.
He's very dry, of course, in his delivery too. Here's the thing as well, in terms of what some of these songs are about or what inspired these songs. Randy is kind of, you could say this about a lot of artists, but Randy is kind of one of the prime examples of the unreliable narrator in his, not just in his songs, but just in his entire career, because you ask him a question about something and then you ask it like 20 years later, you're going to get a completely different answer. I about a couple years ago, I read a biography on Randy Newman that had just come out, A Few Words in Defense of Our Country, The Words and Music of Randy Newman, which is a phenomenal book. I listened to the audiobook. The best part about that book is that it not only goes into, his biography and his career and his life and everything like that, but it also connects his songs and his lyrics to the American socio-political zeitgeist of that time period up to now, and making the connections and how his songs have, for better or worse, continued to stay relevant. But it's an extremely deep dive if you want to really understand Randy Newman's discography and why he is, not only why he is revered as one of the great American songwriters, but arguably why he is perhaps the greatest American songwriter.
Yeah, there's an argument for that.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I say that because he's probably the one American artist that will is unapologetically unafraid to take shots at the country, you know, just and I mean in a very smart and funny and digestible way. Maybe not as digestible for some people like with Bruce Springsteen or Bob Dylan. And that's the kind of the funny thing. We talk about songwriters that have very distinctive voices. And Bob Dylan is up there, and he's had his fair share of songs that have done the same as Randy. The only thing with Bob is that Bob can be somewhat detached from his song, from his lyrics, but not in the way Randy does, where Randy is more portraying characters in his songs. You know, I mean, on the album after this, the first on Good Old Boys, which was also in contention for this podcast, he has a song where that's called Rednecks, where he says the N-word, but it's in a satirical. He's being a character in the song. This was 1973 too, different time, but that's what I'm saying. It's like Bob wouldn't necessarily do something like that, and he wouldn't be, I think, as direct either. That's a
really fascinating trio to compare, because you're right. I hadn't thought about it. All three of them write very, very political songs in the same time period,
or about the same, about kind of similar.
Yeah,
similar.
I mean, you said 1972. I would put that right in
late 60s, mid to late 60s, early 70s into mid 70s. Yeah,
and yet, very different personas as artists. I agree with you. I think of Randy Newman as a songwriter first, and I think of him as like almost a literary icon. I think of him more that way than I do an artist that I'm gonna like. Because here's the thing about artists sometimes is they kind of need this persona of like, I'm gonna follow you into battle. Like, that's how I feel about Bruce Springsteen. Bruce Springsteen could be like, all right guys, it's time. Like, we're all there. Like, he's just got that persona about him, and so it feels very like everything he's saying feels personal. It feels like his words, and this is how it's like his battle cry, his songs to me. And Bob Dylan is a very different flavor than that. But it's almost like the philosopher, like looking out at everything.
Yeah.
Randy Newman, I like what you say about he's a character. I listen to Randy Newman. I'm like, this is like how I feel when I read Mark Twain. Like,
exactly.
There's something about it that feels.
Yes.
One, I think he's a very unassuming person.
Yes. Like, so you wouldn't expect it almost.
Yeah, and so I don't think you take. I think that's why he can get by with saying the things that he says on this record. More than other people, because it's not that you don't take it seriously, but you take it as a commentary, you take it as satire, you take it as, I don't know, but he just comes across as like someone he's just a very unassuming person.
But the almost scary part about it is that in his songs, the characters he portrays and that he narrates as are people that exist in real life.
Oh, totally.
Americans, for sure, you know, whether it was in his time or in the time before.
Yeah.
So diving into the track list, right off the bat before really getting to it. So the funny thing for me is that my first exposure to Randy Newman's back catalog in terms of his discography in the late 60s and 70s and 80s, really his entire solo catalog, was the first song I actually heard from him outside of the Pixar films was the song Sail Away, the title track. But I actually first heard it by Joe Cocker. Because Joe Cocker's actually recorded a couple of Randy Newman songs at least. And Sail Away was featured on an album of his called Organic in 1995, but I heard it on a compilation called The Ultimate Collection that I bought in the mid-2000s. And I think in the liner notes it mentioned what the song is about, and I think Randy actually had said about, because Randy actually played on Joe Cocker's version, funnily enough. And that was the first I heard of it. And Joe's a great interpreter. A very interesting choice for Joe to pick that song. He's British, you see. But that version is kind of similar to Randy's original. The only difference is that instead of orchestrations, there's Hammond organ played by Billy Preston on Joe Cocker's version. But yeah.
That was the only song that I had heard before listening today.
There's one other that I think you also heard as well, but we'll get to that when we get to it, or maybe two others. But I will also just say right off the back, and I've said this to you, Em, and I've said this to many people, I vote for Sail Away to be the new American national anthem.
What a controversial choice.
Is it, though?
I mean, I don't know. It's brutal. It's a very honest portrayal of history.
Well, just right off the bat. So, Sail Away. It's a song about the slave trade.
100%. There are a few songs about the slave trade on this record.
That either
one is like
that are either about it or allude to it,
yeah.
or just allude to the repercussions of American colonialism, as it were,
yeah.
or Manifest Destiny, or I mean, colonialism, but from different directions, I should say.
But if you haven't listened to this record, picture this: a song about slave trade. That sounds like easy afternoon listening.
Yes.
That's what the song is.
But specifically,
deceptive.
But specifically, the character that Randy Newman narrates is about a white colonial sailor or traveler, basically going to Africa and basically telling the Africans, be like, you should come to America. It's so nice. We've got watermelon and buckwheat cakes. You don't have to worry about living in the trees anymore. It's okay. It's okay to laugh. It's okay to laugh. You're supposed to laugh.
And this is why I like calling this music satire, because there's not like he's not beating you over the head with this is wrong or there's anything that he's trying to say. He's just painting the picture.
Yep.
You know?
But I mean, let's be honest. That's probably how it went down in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
too.
very interesting.
You know?
Yeah,
this is what makes his music so subversive too. Is like, for example, in talking in depth a little bit about the slave trades, like we think about, slaves being abducted from Africa and being brought to America and to the West Indies and Brazil and places like that. But actually, it wasn't always like that. There was also like, trying to sell the dream, if you will, and having Africans come at their own accord, still being traded like slaves, yes, but also, what if it was done in a nice way? It's like, yeah, but it's still wrong, and I'm pretty sure things like that did happen too. So that's. But
what's so brilliant about the song is it paints a picture. It paints a picture of just that.
Of a perspective you don't
setting.
Of a perspective you don't think about as much.
It makes it feel just maybe more. I think it puts you into that setting. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And it almost downplays the cruelty of what was happening.
Right.
And in some ways, it lowers your defenses so you actually hear it.
Yes, absolutely, and that represents his whole approach, I think, in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. He's just got a very disarming point of view and way of approaching it, where he can approach. I mean, really, how many artists could approach this topic in a way?
I don't think there's any.
I mean, it's just
artists have tried, and I think some artists have been influenced by that approach. I think they've used that approach in a certain way, but I can't really think of anyone that's done it as well.
And also, I'm going to say it too, you have to remember too, Randy Newman is a white man.
Mm-hmm.
Like
a white Jew specifically.
I mean, the fact that he can do it in a way that is disarming is a way that helps people to listen, help people to understand what was going on. It's a real gift. It really is kind of amazing.
Well, he's also somebody that growing up, he has experienced and witnessed prejudice in many forms, whether it's anti-Semitism, whether it's racism, blacks, Latinos, Cajun, whoever, Yeah. He's been around it all, and he's probably one of the few artists that I think really go out of their way to really preach anti-racism in their music and as part of their artistry. The way he does it, but it's also kind of direct, really, even though it doesn't feel like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So Sail Away, again, my
title track.
My nomination for our new American national anthem. Anyways, moving on to the next track on
literally
here.
Controversial take.
Yep. The next track here, which is a bit of a reprieve, Lonely at the Top. So here's the funny story about this song. He tried to pitch it to Frank Sinatra.
I could see that.
Me too. I don't know why he rejected it.
Maybe he just had too many other great songs.
This was early 70s Sinatra. I don't think he had much going on.
I mean,
this was post Strangers in the Night. So.
I don't know. I mean, the only thing I would say is, does Sinatra have other songs like this? And the answer is kind of yes.
Yeah, but not in the early 70s. I think the most recent song he recorded that actually was popular was a version of Something by the Beatles.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he just, I don't know. There are a million reasons why somebody doesn't cut something.
I can't remember what was said in that Randy Newman bio, because I think Frank really didn't like the song. Like I really don't like it, or I really hate it, or whatever, you know.
Yeah. First reason why you would cut something is that you gotta like it. So
yeah,
fair enough, Frank.
Fair
enough.
Yeah, but I
like it.
I absolutely do love this song. There's a lot of songs on this record that are kind of about the loser character, which I think, if anything, is probably... Randy never really gets personal in his music. He gets sentimental, but he never really gets personal. Not really. So a song like this where he's still portraying a loser character is probably, maybe coming from, in some ways, his own, maybe not his own experience, but sort of this idea, that this self-deprecation.
Well, I listened to Lonely at the Top, and I was like, oh, so 2 episodes ago we did an episode
Captain Fantastic,
which is also about fame. And so I was more listening to it, and I was like, wow, there's some similarities into what he's saying in that record, just about the hollowness of fame and about how
But what's subversive, again, he's very subversive in his songs. About this song is that he's not really at the top. It's just in his head.
Well, yeah.
He's like, I've done all these great things. I've seen so many people. I've laid so many times, and why don't I have it all? And it's like, probably because you're ask me no questions.
Fair.
Yeah. Just a fun little short tune. This sounds actually very short. There's some
it is short, yeah.
A lot of short tunes. I will say, Randy Newman has always, he himself has said he's a very slow writer, and that's why in his solo discography he hasn't really put out many albums in the grand scheme of one's careers, because he's a slow writer. So it takes him a while to write songs or have songs he feels are up to par, worth recording. He never really has extra songs, actually. And it's also
I can't relate to that, to be honest.
No, but it's also said in his biography, he said he only writes as many songs as he needs for a record. So he never really writes to write necessarily. It's always only ever been for...
That's fascinating.
For assignments,
I love how different people work. I write to live. I kind of can't stop a little bit. It's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to me. Someone who I think of as a very prolific songwriter is not that way.
Mm-hmm.
Different ways to do it.
That's right. The next song, He Gives Us All His Love, which is probably the second most misunderstood song on this album, or maybe the third.
What makes it misunderstood?
Well, what do you think the song is about?
I mean, I'm not entirely sure. Yeah. I'm not entirely sure. I thought it might be about faith.
Is it, though?
But I wasn't entirely sure.
In what way, though? In what way is it about the faith?
I don't know, Lou.
Take a guess.
I don't know. I just thought it was a very sincere song about kind of faith and devotion. And
Randy Newman is a staunch atheist.
Yeah, that's why I was like, this doesn't feel... But it could be a faith in a person. I mean, I just wasn't quite sure.
Well, for me, the second verse is kind of the part that gives it away. if you know Randy and you understand his sarcastic sense of humor, the second verse is kind of where he makes it not that obvious, but as obvious as he gets, as he can get on a record, or on a song. So, which that second verse, he knows how hard we're trying. He hears the babies crying. He sees the old folks dying, and he gives us all his love.
I mean, tell me that's not questioning about religion. I don't know.
It's funny because there have been artists that have covered this song, but they've sung it straight.
Interesting.
Which actually there's another song that like that on here too, but we'll get to that. But yeah, Randy is a staunch atheist, and he's never been. I mean, number one, he's never been religious, but number two, he's also just never really believed, considering his Jewish background as well. So, and he has had other songs in some ways that have hinted at, like, if God is all powerful, why do bad things keep happening? It's not as overt on this song for sure, but yeah, there's sort of a hint of sarcasm to it, which, again, if you ask Randy Newman himself what this song is about, he won't never give you an honest answer about it,
Yeah.
So at that point, it's really up to the interpretation of the listener.
Yeah, I mean, I interpret it as like a faith question.
And I guess at the very least, it does come down to that.
I just think it's about like those philosophies. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think there are many people who don't think through those questions, whether or not, wherever you land on that, if he's an atheist or what, it doesn't matter. He still probably thinks about it, and it's a fascinating concept to write about.
Yes, and there's another song that alludes to that we'll get to later too. Again, this album is very connected in its themes from across different songs.
I really enjoy what I loved about this album is it was an album. Like, I have a soft spot for an album that's all connected. You do need all the songs to make it make complete sense. It's not a list of singles thrown together. Like, I miss that period of music. I really do.
This album, compared to his previous two albums, that's why this album very much stood out, is because thematically it was much stronger, where his first two albums were definitely more collections of songs. But Sail Away and the following record, Good Old Boys, they're definitely simpatico in their themes of the American zeitgeist. For sure.
Yeah. I want to highlight Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah.
I actually really loved that song. I mean, it's a song about, what it would be like, kind of a nostalgic look at that time period. It's looking back on 1903 in Dayton, Ohio. And he just paints this picture, and you are all of a sudden transported more in a way like I get when I'm reading a novel than I do when I'm listening to an album. And I really, really loved that.
And he's great at doing that both lyrically and musically. I mean, one of the other films that he wrote the film score for in the early 80s was the film Ragtime. Which, I mean, he's pretty much the perfect candidate because musically he really is great at emulating a lot of those early great American songwriters like Jerome Kern and George Gershwin and Irving Berlin. Those were all of his top guys. He just took that musical language combined with, kind of the conversationalism of not only of those lyricists, Ira Gershwin notwithstanding, but also sort of the folk music and Bob Dylan school of folk music, and that's pretty much the combination that you get his solo catalog with. And I really like that song as well. I mean, there are some of those other songs that he really just paints a picture. Old Man is another one of those songs too. Yeah. Which is,
and again, it's not telling you it's negative or positive. It kind of just puts you in those places, and you just have to kind of think to yourself.
But he also kind of has a sort of again, a self-deprecating humor about it. Like, especially like on Old Man, it's about being an old man and being forgotten. It's like, oh, woe is me. Like, I'm going to die.
Yeah, that is
know?
literally the vibe.
Yeah, it's like everyone's forgotten about me. The world has moved on. What more use do I have? I mean, this dude was like in his, I think 30 or late 20s, early 30s when he was making this record.
Yeah.
The other song I'll highlight too, just as a reprieve from everything before we really get into it, is Simon Smith and His Amazing Dancing Bear, which actually most people have probably heard this song from The Muppet Show because it was on one of the early-ish episodes.
Again, some kind of sync thing.
Yeah.
It's just all throughout his career. Like, it's a really interesting part of his career. It really is.
Well, actually, I will say this. I forgot to mention this when talking about Harry Nilsson, is that before this album, or before Randy really had much notoriety, Harry Nilsson recorded an album of only Randy Newman songs.
I get why. I really do understand that.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, he did record Simon Smith, but it wasn't on that album. It was on one of his previous albums, and it's pretty much the same arrangement, more or less. The song is what it literally, you read the title and it's like, that is exactly what the song is about.
Yep.
Just a fun little ditty. By the way, I've seen Randy Newman in concert twice.
Cool, man. I was not there with you.
No.
I'm bummed. I want to go.
I saw him at UCLA, Royce Hall. He was, I guess, working on the Toy Story 3 films at the time, and he was doing this concert. He was sick that day because he'd, I think, just been, just working himself to all hours of the day, and he's like, I'm a little sick, I'll get through it. Which actually, the concert went really well. He just forgot some lyrics here and there. But you go,
same, man.
But the show was just him and the piano for 2.5 hours with an intermission. And he's just going through the catalog, just solo catalog, film stuff here and there, and you'll never see a more honest, quotation marks, honest concert than that, I think. I did also see him in the UK at Royal Festival Hall. I actually ran into Patrick Stewart there. He was at that show. Captain Picard himself from Star Trek. And ironically, I was kind of sick when I went to that show. I had kind of a cough, and I was really trying hard not to cough during the songs, just in between songs, if anything. And that was a brilliant show too. Like, I mean, just the master just playing the songs as he wrote them. It's like you don't get that as much nowadays, I feel, especially from songwriters that are that prolific.
Yeah. I don't know if we have. I just don't know if that's where we're at right now in music, to be honest. I don't know if I totally think that those writers are cutting through right now. There, I said it. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, we think of artists nowadays, you have your pop stars and you have your popular artists in certain genres and your indie artists, bands, but it's like, there's very few artists that can have an album, let alone a catalog of songs where every song is memorable, every song hits, and you'll miss it if you don't hear it at them performing, but also wanting to see them perform just them by themselves with a piano or a guitar, very little or to no accompaniment, just wanting to hear the song very bare bones, very raw. Yeah. And now, as we get into the nitty-gritty, political science. Randy Newman actually relatively recently performed this song on John Mulaney's Netflix show, which I was actually kind of surprised because a few years ago, it was after COVID, he was supposed to do a European tour and he canceled it because of health issues. He had to have back surgery, and I think that took him out. And he's unfortunately retired from performing, which sucked because I really wanted us to go see him live.
I would love that.
Yeah. But but one of the more recent, very rare live appearances he made was on John Mulaney's show. I don't know how he got him out, but yeah, he got him out, and one of the songs he performed was "Political Science," which is a song about U.S. foreign policy.
I mean, talk about relevant, right? Like, this is a song, this whole record is a record that could come out today and it would feel very relevant. It really would. I think that, and this song is one of them.
I mean, I think this song, I say this song every decade or so. I'm like, oh, this song is relevant now more than ever. And then I'm always proven wrong 10 years later. And I'm like, oh, now it's definitely more relevant now more than ever.
Yeah.
Considering the U.S., not only the U.S. socio-political climate, but just our current governmental relationships with other countries, tariffs notwithstanding, and just this attitude of like, no one likes us, man. No one likes us.
Hey, it's kind of true.
Which is funny because, again, it plays into like sort of the loser character, like he does on some of his other songs,
Right.
But just the loser is America.
Yeah. Yeah, I was looking at the lyrics because I just,
And it's hilarious every time.
When he's using humor again to help us actually hear the message.
Yeah, humor in that satire way of like hearing the funny extremes of like, but then it's like once you really kind of understand the lyrics, you're laughing, but you're also kind of laughing in an uncomfortable way.
It is uncomfortable. Like verse 3 is, Asia's crowded, Europe's too old, which makes me giggle. I think that's hilarious. Africa is far too hot and Canada is too cold. And South America stole our name.
They also stole our colonialism too, but I digress.
Let's drop the big one. There'll be no one left to blame.
Yep. If that doesn't represent the attitude of our current American political, whatever you want to call it, I don't know what does.
What's interesting is he was putting that, these aren't new ideas.
Yeah, they're not new ideas. This was 72.
This was 72, and that could come out today, and I think people would nod their head and go like, yeah, I know what he's talking about. And I think that's because the ideas we are seeing today are not new ideas. They've been around for a long time.
Well, what makes Randy very brilliant, I think, when talking about these things is he's never been topical in a dated way. He's never really, that's why I say he's one of the great American songwriters. His songs touch on a lot of American type of attitudes, and that's what makes it timeless. He's not writing a song about the Vietnam War or a song about Watergate or anything like that. He's really writing songs about America as a country and America as the people, as the population. Yeah. But trying to do it from the perspective of, in some ways, from the perspective of someone he disagrees with, but also exposing the absurdity of those attitudes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I really love what that song doesn't say. Is the best way to put it. He
lets you fill in the blanks.
He just lets you fill in the blanks, and I think that's one of the most brilliant parts about his writing. Again, it's more literature than it is song in a way.
Yep.
Yeah, so true. I grew up so much with that kind of, that was what we read in school because Mark Twain is so associated with Missouri, obviously, where I'm from. So that style of writing is kind of in the culture where I'm from. I think as a songwriter myself, it's something I think about a lot. And I would argue that a lot of Missouri writers think like that. And so when you hear it, that kind of literature somewhere else, you pick up on it so fast.
He's also very literary in a similar way on Last Night I Had a Dream, which is on the A side too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a cool one.
A lot of American imagery, a lot of these ideas of what we think about who we are and where we're from, but also just like, it's like, why do we have these big ideas, we think we're so great, but are we really? And that's the thing, he's never really saying what is right or what is wrong. It's more of, like you said, kind of exposing the realities and then either asking questions or allowing the listener to ask questions.
Yeah. I would say that's the big theme of the whole record is just, it's kind of tearing down the American image.
Yes.
Self-image. And
Yes.
saying, let's look at our history. Let's look at our stories. Let's look at who we are with just brutal honesty and, go from there.
Yep, absolutely.
And there's an interesting, I think a lot of people are doing that right now.
And I hope more people continue to do it.
Yeah.
Did you have any thoughts on some of the interim songs like Burn On or Memo to My Song? Memo to My Song is kind of, I think, sort of the same storyline as Old Man.
Yeah, I would say that's true. It's funny because that's like a cynical, like father to son song.
Right.
Which is, I don't know why I feel like Randy Newman is like a dad character to me. Like he's like,
but he's an American dad character too.
He's an
like,
American dad character, so like that song just enforces that in my head. Maybe it's just like in my head, Randy Newman is always an old man. Like, just I don't know. I mean, he's older than us, so that's probably just why I see that.
Right, exactly.
I would probably feel differently if I grew up more in his era, but yeah. So to me, that just it feels like a conversation that you would have with Randy Newman, you know.
And Burn On is kind of sort of his quasi Dust Bowl folk song, if you will. Yeah.
This whole record is very folky. I mean, he's a folk artist in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways.
Well, he's folk in the
writing.
He's folk in the lyric writing. Musically, again, it's very jazz, Dixie, and folk combination.
In the lyric writing, I would say.
Well, I was saying musically he was. Yeah. But now getting to the last two tracks, You Can Leave Your Hat On, which is also a moment of reprieve. Now, I also first heard this song by Joe Cocker, because Joe Cocker recorded this song for the film soundtrack of 9.5 Weeks. Or it was actually on his album, Cocker, in the late 80s, and then it got used in the film, and that's how it got more popular. But again, it's one of those cases where Joe Cocker's version, he sang it straight, whereas Randy Newman's version has a very different attitude to it. And again, the narrator of You Can Leave Your Hat On is, again, the loser character.
Well, I liked it as one of the closing tracks. I thought it was kind of a cool groove. I liked kind of the more bluesy vibe. And You Can Leave Your Hat On, is that an old saying?
I can't remember exactly, but it's a song about a guy that's basically trying to woo a woman into taking all their clothes off.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah.
But doing it in a very pathetic way.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. To me, it was more about the attitude of the character, which made sense for one of the closing tracks. It kind of felt like that was the attitude that Randy was kind of like trying to address throughout the rest of it, like trying to get us to maybe lose some of that attitude.
Right.
And then it felt like, oh wait, here's a character that's like, who's just going to be that. He's always going to be that.
Yeah. Again, it's a moment of reprieve, but it still connects with those characters too. It's funny because Joe Cocker's version, and Tom Jones also recorded this song later, and they sang it more as like a sex song that worked.
I feel like there are all these artists who cover Randy Newman and they sing it straight, and it's like it was never meant to be that. It was always meant to have humor, always meant to have subtext, and like
which is
without it, like what are we doing?
Well, it's funny because Randy has said about Joe Cocker's version, it's like, oh, I like that version. Maybe I should record it that way, with just more, have more energy. I sang it so low. Maybe I should have sang it higher, or not.
And that is his vibe.
That is literally his vibe.
Yeah.
All
that's
right.
Funny.
Now so You Can Leave Your Hat On is the penultimate song. Now we've come to the final track, which might be it's the perfect conclusion of the Sail Away album, and it connects almost directly to the first track, and that is God's Song. That's Why I Love Mankind. And it also connects to He Gives Us All His Love as well. Now, you have heard this song because it was featured on not one, but 2 episodes of The Morning Show.
I didn't know that.
I pointed it out when we watched it.
Yes. Okay, The Morning Show is a show I've been addicted to on Apple TV.
By the way, when's that next season coming out?
It's out. I haven't finished it.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's about morning
newscasters.
Yeah, morning
and
newscasters.
the drama that comes into it, and it has a bunch of A-list movie actors that they probably paid way too much to do this show.
I don't know. It's pretty good, so.
It is pretty good.
That's very good.
But yes, God's Song was featured on a couple episodes.
That's really funny. Hey, makes sense to me. Makes sense to me.
And if there's a song that I think sums up Randy's attitude when it comes to faith and religion, or at least the character he portrays, I think it's that song.
Yeah. Whew, guys, this one's a heavy one. Sorry to bring us there. We got songs about faith. We got songs about maybe the lack of faith. We got songs about politics and, breaking down maybe the American narrative. I'm sorry, y'all, if you...
Happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July. Hey, we're not trying to say anything, whatever. Go check out the record. We think anybody would like it. It's just
but it makes
a point of view.
Yeah,
which is a really, really, and at the end of the day, as artists, that's really all that you're trying to do is have a point of view. And Randy does that better than a lot of people.
And I also think it's also giving permission to anyone listening that it is okay to, have a critical mindset when thinking about, not only what you believe in or what other people believe in, mostly what you believe in, but also mindsets and points of view and things that we think are, not the greatest or not right, but just breaking it down to its essence and being like, who are we as a person? Who are we as an American people? Mm-hmm. And really trying to understand that, and all the baggage that comes with it, and not feel ashamed of it, but just understanding that as Americans, we also have the ability to continue working to a better world, to a better country, not just for us individually, but for everybody. And anybody that, wants to be here is able to be here, and in terms of just for ourselves and what we represent to the rest of the world. And that's always kind of been Randy's, I think, mission statement when it comes to this kind of music is he still very much believes in American idealism.
Yeah.
And that's something that I do want to stress, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about Randy when it comes to that.
That's a good way to say it. Yeah.
And so he's always been, I think, a champion for American idealism. He portrays it, like we said, in a very different way versus Bruce Springsteen, versus Bob Dylan, But going back to God's Song, this is basically almost a complete breakdown of faith and religion. And I mean breakdown by many definitions.
Yeah. Which is a fascinating place to kind of end the record with, really.
Mm-hmm.
Makes a lot of sense that he would end it there, I think.
Yeah. And, briefly going back to He Gives Us All His Love, how I was saying, there's sort of a sarcastic tone to it in some of the lyrics. Well, that very much is more apparent on this song, God's Song. And maybe not the sarcasm necessarily, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, but more of like that idea of, again, if God is so powerful and loving, then why do these, horrible things happen? Or why have these horrible things happened in the name of God? It's like, but then it's, it's kind of thinking about the people, or you think about the Bible, or you think about these stories and people that really maybe preach some of these stories, and it's like, oh, it's God's love. It's God's love. So it's laying it all out there as someone would probably communicate it, but because it's Randy Newman, you're getting more of the layers of really questioning that idea. Is like, oh, is that how God loves people?
Well, yeah, and it just ties in all these different characters that you've seen throughout the record. So you see this character of God saying, you know, I do these horrible things and that's how I love mankind. That's literally kind of the thesis of that song, which is a tough thing to swallow, guys.
Yes. And he and in the song the narration is literally God talking.
It's literally God talking. God is the character. And you know, if you go back to the very beginning, we've got the man who is the literal slave trader. We've got the old man. We have all these characters singing these songs, and the thing that kind of brings them all together is there's this, like, they think they're good people, and there's pride in them, and there's vanity, and there's like all these like weird kind of things.
There's these flaws,
and Randy just kind of twists them and says, well, let me just paint a picture for you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the final picture that he paints. And I think it's all connected. I think the way he's painting the final character, the way he's painting all these other characters, they kind of all have a similar flaw. And that's kind of the point of the record in a lot of ways.
But at the same time, there is a sense of empathy with these characters. And that's why I said before why Randy is actually an American idealist. Because even though he is being satirical and pointing out these flaws and these imperfections in his own way, the difference with him is that he actually does have empathy for these kinds of characters, for these kinds of people, these Americans that are out there, these people from whoever that are, you know, racist, that are xenophobic, that are, you know, entitled to women or feel entitled to women, or, you know, whatever you want to, whatever you can think of. He feels not pity necessarily, but he understands why people are the way they are at the end of the day. And his songwriting is more, his lyrics are more about just kind of not only demonstrating the absurdity of it, but also saying, like, you know, you can go a bit easy on it, you know. And I actually say that because in the last verse, you know, he's like, you almost be crazy to put your faith in me. That's God talking. That's why I love mankind. You really need me. That's why I love mankind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, it's like there's a reason why people are the way they are. And Randy never shies away from that. He never takes the humanity out of the characters that he's portraying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so in a song like this, where, you know, God is talking about how God speaking, how he himself finds the absurdity and the humor of how people believe in him, even though the world is not perfect, and God claims to be the cause of a lot of these things, is that there's sort of, he understands the relationship and why they feel the need to, or the necessity to have those belief systems.
Yeah. Well, guys, we always end with the same question, and that is, why should somebody, if they've never listened to this record, why would you suggest that they pull this one out, take a minute to listen to this record?
I think that this record is one of the most honest depictions of the human condition from the perspective of being from the United States of America, being an American, and all the baggage that comes with in terms of whether your lineage stems from American colonialism or just having lived in this country or had heritage in this country over the last 100 years, let alone 250 years, and even longer than that, pre-colonial. You know, I sort of pointed out earlier about, you know, we talk about the slave trade, you talk about colonialism, the missionaries manifest destiny, and the consequences that came with that. And, you know, we learn about this in history in different ways, but I think through this album, Randy Newman's Sail Away is really where you can get all of that very concentrated in a way that's digestible, but also in a way that's honest, both artistically, both historically. And if you really want to understand of America, if you really want to understand why we're in the place we are, especially if you're non-American, if you're from another part of the country, which I know we have occasionally listeners from different parts of the world, this is the album that you want to check out. And I won't say it's like, if you want something more idealistic, you can go listen to, other artists that I think are a bit more uplifting in that way. But Sail Away by Randy Newman is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, album by an American artist that is unapologetically quintessential American.
I also want to point out, art is dangerous.
Yes.
Art is controversial. Art is a point of view.
And Randy has had his fair share of experiencing that. Maybe not necessarily on a grand level like some artists, but he's no stranger to those criticisms.
And I just think this is a great example of a really talented writer sharing that point of view
and giving permission
to think and figure out your own.
Yeah, to also criticize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I love it. This was a cool suggestion. I really enjoyed this record. I thought it was a really fun one to kind of dig your teeth into.
Yeah, absolutely. Randy Newman, for me, I've been a huge fan for a long time. I bought one of his compilations when I was, I think, about 10 or 11 years old, and I listened to it incessantly. Sail Away was on that compilation, and it wasn't until a little bit later that I really dug into his albums, and I heard his songs here and there. I mean, you could do a whole dissertation on connecting Randy. I said this to one of my colleagues in my day job, because I work as a teacher. I told this to one of my colleagues that teaches history. I'm like, can we just create an entire American history curriculum that is just based around Randy Newman songs? I'm like, you definitely can. You can definitely outline that. And he's, up to a few years ago when he put out his last single, "Stay Away," which was his COVID song. I mean, that's as far as how he's continued to write songs that really speak to the times that we live in as Americans and throughout the world. So, you definitely owe it to yourself to dig into his the rest of his discography beyond the Pixar and film stuff.
Well, thanks, guys, for tuning in to another episode of Home Records. If you like what you've been hearing, you can follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are available.
And if you'd like to show your support, please give us a 5-star review and be sure to spread the word to all your friends and family.
And enemies.
Thank you once again, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.